How's it going, everybody? Live from Surprise, Arizona, I'm Jared Sandler alongside Matt Hicks. Hicksy wants to call this From the Perch. It's a working title. If you have any better suggestions, please let us know. We're going to be doing this a few times a week here throughout the duration of Rangers spring training, covering Rangers topics, baseball topics, whatever it is that we decide to talk about. And despite the fact that Hicksy's name idea for this is so-so, we came up with a good idea to talk about today, and that's the pace of play. There's some new rules. Hicksy, tell us about it.
Well, I mean, it's really a couple of things. Number one, they're trying to shave some time off of the time between innings, probably trying to cut it down from last year by about 20 seconds every half inning. And then, of course, the mound visits being restricted. The time limit now is supposed to be 30 seconds. Here in the first two games, we really haven't seen anybody with a long mound visit. There really is no repercussion if you go over the 30 seconds, but I think what it is just an extension of what baseball started last year, and that is making everybody aware of the fact that they just want to keep going. They don't want to get into a situation where you're dragging things out. The rules last year, I think, reduced the average time of play by about 5 to 6 minutes. If these rules, if you talk about 20 seconds per half inning and keeping mound visits to 30 seconds, that might decrease games by another average of about 5 to 6 minutes. Baseball just wants to not be in a situation where average game times are anywhere over 3 hours.
Okay, so a few things about the 30-second mound visits. One, should there be repercussions if you exceed 30 seconds? And I was trying to think what those repercussions should be, because I want it to be enforced. I think that's a great rule. I think a 30-second clock is outstanding, but what's going to entice teams to follow that without being too severe? Because at the end of the day, it really is a minor infraction. And I don't love the idea of a ball or a strike being added because I don't want it to dictate how a game ends up. I mean, if the count's 1-0, making the count 2-0 because you fail to follow that rule, I mean, that's pretty drastic, especially if you look at some of the numbers. So I wonder if it's a minor fine, and I'm talking like $100 a pop, or what you can actually do to enforce that rule.
Yeah, I don't know as though there's nothing really in place right now for them to enforce that. I think maybe what baseball will do is take a look at are there repeat offenders? Are there guys that after the 30 seconds and they've been warned continue to linger, continue to stay out there? And then maybe you'll have the commissioner's office say something to them and see if that doesn't improve it. If you have some teams or some coaches that are really bad at stretching out that 30 seconds, then maybe you think about some penalties maybe for next year. But to me, I think what it is that baseball has put in these time restrictions, and what it's done is it's made everybody more aware that you just need to keep the pace going. Don't dilly down.
Okay, now what if you have, and I mean this obviously with a smile on my face, but I mean this definitely could come into play. You've got your 75-year-old pitching coaches coming off hip replacement or knee replacement. It seems like the Rangers have a young guy, Doug Brocail. They might have a little bit of an advantage, like a 2 or 3 second advantage, because these guys can't just walk and limp all the way out to the mound anymore with this clock.
Yeah, Broke has been pretty good about getting out there. He's only gone out there a handful of times in 2 games, but he's gotten out there. He said what he's had to say, and he's gotten back. If there's a guy that takes 20 or 30 seconds to get out there, well, there's your time.
I was thinking about this, and again, how much of a difference would that make? I don't know. Maybe minimal if it ever does throughout the year. But I wonder if at any point there's a team with an old pitching coach who has a brittle body that just can't run anymore. I wonder if they send someone else out there who can get out there and relay a message quickly. I don't know. I wonder if that ever happens at any point this year.
I would hate to think that a guy that takes a long time to get out there is only given a few seconds to say his message, because then it looks bad.
Yeah,
and I don't think you want to look bad. Yeah, you want to stay within the constraints that baseball is trying to apply, but I don't know if you're going to get to the point where, hey, let's send somebody else out there because they're younger and they can get out there quicker. That kind of starts to look bad on the game.
But a part of the idea of this rule is to also prevent the filibustering while a guy's warming up.
Right.
And I understand, listen,
right.
I get it. I get that, just because you can't run anymore, maybe your intent isn't to stall so that Joe Bob in the bullpen can get loose. But the reality is, if it's going to take you 20 seconds to get out there, if they're going to make exceptions for you, they're also allowing your team to stall to warm up arms more than the opposing team.
And we haven't seen that yet. You're not
Right.
going to see that in spring training. Obviously, during the regular season, you'll see it. But I think that's where the umpire's judgment comes into play.
Yeah.
When you're down on the field, you get a sense for whether or not, regardless of how much time they're taking, whether that purpose is to extend time for a guy to get loose in the bullpen, or whether he's really going out there to talk about, well, what do we need to do to get this guy out? I think if you're a good umpire, you have a feel for that. And if you don't feel as though that the team is stalling, you give them a little more time. If you do feel like it's a stall tactic, then you get out there right away. And, that's another burden that's been placed on the umpires.
All right, as we wrap this up, Major League Baseball continues to make changes as a part of an effort to speed up the game. What's the next thing you'd like to see them do?
Man, I don't know as though I would like to see any real drastic changes to the game itself, because baseball is supposed to be a pastoral game. It is supposed to be a game that requires pause for thinking, a time to reflect upon what just happened and what's coming up next. You don't want it to drag out, but you also don't want baseball to become something that baseball isn't. You don't want it to become anything like basketball. You don't want it to become anything like football. I think what we have now is probably good. I'm fine. I'm one of those guys. I was a kid. I was a geek when I went to games as a little kid. I still am. I like the fact I'd love to go see doubleheaders. Paying $4 to go see 2 games way back in the day, I thought it was great. And I was one of those kids that never got up to get a hot dog, never got up to get a drink, took a scorebook, wanted to see every pitch, you want to absorb it all. To me, that's part of the fun of baseball. If I go to a baseball game and it's all this fast everything, to me, you're taking away from a part of what baseball is. So there's a real, I think, effort to find that balance. Let's still have baseball be what baseball is, but let's not make it a yawn fest. And so that's where baseball's challenge is to me.
So there's one change I'd like to make,
okay,
more than any others.
That's not in place right now.
That's not in place right now. And I've thought about limiting catcher visits, but I'll push that lower on the list.
Okay.
97% of the time when a manager leaves the dugout, he knows that he's making a pitching change. There's that 3% where I think they genuinely want to hear what the pitcher on the mound has to say to determine whether or not they're going to take the ball.
Right.
Let's save some time, and if I want to take you out of the game, I step out of the dugout, get the attention of the home plate umpire, look to the bullpen, do one of these or one of these, and let's eliminate the 45-second drawn-out process where you walk to the mound and stand there and dilly-dally and wait for the umpire to come to the mound. And let's eliminate that. If I'm making a change, like when I pinch run, or if I'm a manager, I don't go walk out and I don't go talk to the massage his butt and make sure he understands the move.
Right.
If I know I'm making that move, let's make the move. Step out of the dugout, blue, righty, and let's make the move.
Right.
I mean, I don't know that strategically that impacts the game.
But you also don't want to take away from the manager that opportunity to go out there if indeed he's going to stay with that guy.
Okay, but
so that if a manager is going to make a pitching change, that he has to do it from the dugout. Now you're taking that away.
And now, so I guess where you could enforce this rule is when a manager. Let's start with when a manager has to make the change. So if you're not familiar with the rule, if you go visit the mound for a second time in an inning out of the dugout, so pitching coach or manager, you have to make a change. So in that case, you're not considering anything.
Right.
So let's start with those situations where it's second time, bam, got to make that change.
Right. Well, and as soon as he steps out of the dugout, you know that's what has to happen. That pitcher has to come out.
Right.
The only decision is if you get 2 guys warming up in the bullpen, which guy do you bring in? That's the only decision.
But they know that decision.
Right, but they know exactly what they're going to do.
All right, there you go. Working title from the perch. Please come up with something better. He's Matt Hicks. I'm Jared Sandler.
You couldn't come up with anything.
Oh, you put me on the spot. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.